thought I had found the love of my life, but what I really found was the most painful mirror of my own absence, and it was in that broken reflection that I finally learned to truly see myself, because sometimes we need to lose ourselves completely to discover who we've always been. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt like you were losing yourself trying to be loved, if you've ever doubted your own worth because of someone else, if you've ever woken up not recognizing the person in the mirror, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I want more people to know they're not alone in this journey of finding themselves again. I read every comment, and each story you share reminds me why I decided to talk about this. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you been through something similar? Stay with me until the end, because this story might be exactly what you need to hear today. And trust me, it'll be worth every second. My name is Clara. I'm 28 years old. I live in a small apartment with a balcony that faces the sunset, and today I know exactly who I am. But 2 years ago, if you had asked me who Clara was, I probably would have looked at the floor and said, I don't know anymore, because that's what happened. I lost myself. I lost myself so completely that there came a point when I no longer knew what my favorite food was, which song made me dance, or which dream was still alive inside me. And it all started when he came into my life. When he came into my life, it was as if the world finally made sense. You know that feeling when all the pieces fit together? When the universe conspired to put that exact person in your path? That was it. It was more than that. It was as if I had spent 26 years breathing halfway, and suddenly, someone had taught me how to fill my lungs completely. He had a calm way of speaking, almost hypnotic. His voice was deep, measured, as if each word was chosen carefully. He had a smile that seemed to hold good secrets, the kind of smile that makes you want to discover everything about the person. And he looked at me in a way I'd never been looked at before. It wasn't just attraction. It was as if he could see through me, as if he saw potential, promise, something special that I didn't even see in myself. And after years of feeling invisible, insignificant, just another face in the crowd, that was like pure oxygen, I remember the first time we met. It was at a networking event that I almost didn't attend. I had spent the whole day convinced it would be a waste of time, that I wouldn't meet anyone interesting, that I'd be stuck in a corner with a glass of wine pretending to be comfortable. But my friend Luana insisted so much that I finally gave in. I put on a navy blue dress that I loved, the one with white polka dots, let my hair down, put on red lipstick. I looked in the mirror before leaving and thought, you look beautiful. This is going to be nice. The event was at a modern co-working space, one of those with exposed brick walls and plants hanging from the ceiling, ambient music playing softly, elegant people circulating with glasses of sparkling wine. I was talking to a designer about typography when I felt someone watching. I turned and it was him, standing about 3 meters away, watching me with that discreet smile. It wasn't invasive, it was magnetic. He approached, extended his hand and said, Sorry to interrupt, but I needed to know who the person is who smiles while talking about serif fonts. I laughed, and it was in that laugh that everything began. We talked all night, about work, about dreams, about movies that make us cry, and books that change our lives. He was an architect, worked on commercial projects, traveled a lot. He had a way of speaking that made you feel important. He didn't just listen, he absorbed every word. He asked questions that showed he was really interested. And how did you start working with content creation? What was the project that impacted you the most? What makes you wake up excited in the morning? I talked about my dreams. Those dreams I kept hidden for fear of seeming silly. Dreams of having my own agency someday, of traveling while doing creative work, of proving that you can live from art without starving. Things I rarely shared with anyone because they always came with skeptical looks or polite smiles that said, "Good luck with that." But with him it was different. He held my hand across the table. It was the first time he touched me, and I felt a shiver run up my arm, and said, "You're going to achieve all of that. I know it. I see it in you. You have a spark." I believed him. I believed in him. I believed in us. That night ended with him walking me to the taxi, with the promise of seeing each other again. I got home floating. I called Luana at 2 a.m, talking nonstop, barely breathing. "Lou, I met someone, and I think he's different. I think he might be special." She laughed on the other end of the line, happy for me, but also with that maternal tone of, let's take it slow, okay? But I didn't want slow. I wanted to dive in head first, and that's exactly what I did. The first few months were magical, and I'm not exaggerating. They were truly magical. He sent me good morning messages every day, sometimes with a song, sometimes with a photo of something that reminded him of me. Saw this sunset and thought of you. Heard this song on the radio and remembered that night. Small gestures that made my heart race. He made simple but meaningful surprises. Once he left flowers at my door without warning, just because he had passed by the florist and saw some daisies that reminded him of me. Another time, he showed up at my work at lunchtime with sandwiches and my favorite dessert, just because he knew I was having a difficult week. We made plans, lots of plans. Travel to the beach in the summer, rent a house facing the ocean, and spend an entire week doing nothing but reading, swimming, and watching the sunrise. Visit that mountain town I'd always wanted to see, the one with colorful houses, and air so pure you can smell the vegetation from miles away. Maybe live together someday, share expenses, get a dog, build a life. I saw myself growing old beside him, laughing at little things, sharing victories and holding each other's hands through defeats. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone, or at least that's what I thought. Little did I know that feeling of being seen would soon turn into a feeling of being watched. The changes were subtle at first, so subtle that I didn't even realize they were changes. I thought they were just adjustments, natural evolutions of a relationship. He started making comments about my clothes, nothing aggressive, nothing that sounded like direct criticism, always wrapped in a tone of care, of wanting the best for me. Love, don't you think this dress is a bit too casual for you? You deserve something more sophisticated, something that shows how amazing you are. Or, wow, I love it when you wear that navy blue blazer. You look so much more elegant, so much more professional. You should wear it more often. At first, I thought it was sweet. I thought he just wanted to see me shine, help me make a better impression. So I started wearing the blue blazer more. I started replacing the floral dresses I loved, those light, colorful ones full of personality, with more serious, more neutral, more appropriate pieces. I put away the flat sandals and started wearing only heels. I tied up my hair that I always wore loose because he said once that tied hair is more elegant, more mature. I didn't realize I was no longer choosing for myself. I thought I was evolving. Then came the comments about my work. I worked at a small agency, did social media for local brands. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't pay a fortune, but I liked it. There was creativity, there was freedom, there was purpose. I woke up excited to create campaigns, to see the results, to help small businesses grow. But for him, it wasn't enough. You're so smart, Clara, so creative. Why don't you try something bigger? Like, work at a multinational, earn more, have a real position. He said this with that tone of someone who wants to motivate you, with that soft voice, full of concern. But it always came accompanied by a comparison. There was always an example of someone who had really made it. Juliana, my coworker, she started from scratch, just like you. And today she's a manager at a huge company, earns really well, travels the world. You could do the same. You have everything it takes. Or, I saw on LinkedIn that girl from college, Mariana, is working at a top agency in Sao Paulo. You were better than her back then. Why aren't you there too? I started questioning myself. Was I too comfortable? Was I not ambitious enough? Was I wasting my potential staying at that little agency, earning that modest salary, working with small clients? I started staying up all night taking online courses, Google Ads, advanced copywriting, metrics analysis. I sent out resumes every week to bigger companies, even if the position wasn't exactly what I wanted. I woke up at 5 a.m. to study before work, went to sleep after midnight reviewing my portfolio, trying to prove, to him, to the world, to myself, that I was capable of more. But the more I tried, the more distant he seemed, as if nothing I did was really impressive, as if I was always one step behind, always almost there, but never quite arriving. Oh, cool that you took that course. But wouldn't it be better to get an MBA? That's what people who really want to grow do. Nice project in your portfolio, but don't you think it's missing something more impactful, something that catches attention. And that's when I started to lose myself. But I still hadn't realized it. Because when you're inside, when you're immersed in it, you don't see. You think you're swimming, but you're actually drowning. And the worst part is that you're sinking slowly, so slowly that you don't notice the water rising until it covers your mouth. I didn't notice when I stopped calling my friends. Luana, who had been my best friend since adolescence, invited me out every weekend. Want to go to the movies? Want to have dinner at that new place? Want to just talk? Have some wine? Catch up? And I always made an excuse. Oh, Lou, I'm tired. It was a rough week. I have to study. You know how it is. I'm going to be with him today. We barely saw each other this week. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if I went out, he'd be upset. Afraid that he'd think I wasn't prioritizing him. Afraid that he'd say, in that hurt tone, "You prefer your friends over spending time with me?" So I started pulling away. I started canceling plans, responding to messages days late, making up commitments. And my friends started giving up, not because they didn't care, but because you can't insist with someone who doesn't want to be reached. It became just the two of us. Except the closer I got to him, the further I got from myself. By that point, I no longer knew who I was. I looked in the mirror in the morning and saw a woman I didn't recognize. My hair was different. He had suggested I cut it shorter. It would be more modern, more current. My clothes were different, all in neutral tones, nothing too flashy. My tastes were different. I had stopped listening to the music I loved because he thought it was kind of adolescent. Even the way I spoke had changed. I avoided making jokes because once he said I was a bit childish when I laughed too loud. I avoided talking about my projects because he always found a way to point out what could be better. I was molding myself, fitting myself, diminishing myself, becoming an edited, filtered, approved version of myself. And the scariest part? I thought this was love. I thought this is what relationships required. Sacrifice, adaptation, transformation. I thought that to be loved, I needed to be someone worthy of love. And in his head, which had gradually become my head too, I still wasn't. But that night, everything would change. That night, the mirror would finally shatter, and in the shards, I would begin to truly see myself. It was the birthday party of one of his friends, Felipe. He invited me to come along, and I was excited. It was rare for us to go out with his circle. He always said I'd meet the group when the time was right, and I never questioned what that meant. But this time, he wanted me to go, and I wanted to believe that meant something, that he was proud of me, that I had finally become the person he thought I should be. I spent hours getting ready. I went to get my nails done, chose a discreet nude tone. I washed and straightened my hair, leaving it perfectly smooth. I chose an outfit I knew he would approve of. A black long-sleeved dress, discreet, elegant, nothing daring. Light makeup, almost invisible, just a bit of foundation, a touch of blush, clear lip gloss. I put on a pair of small pearl earrings my grandmother had given me. I looked in the mirror before leaving and thought, today is going to be good. He'll be proud of me. I look beautiful. I'm right. He picked me up at 8. When I opened the door, he looked me up and down and nodded. You look good. Shall we go? No. You look beautiful. No dazzled smile. Just, you look good, in the tone of someone checking an item off a list. But I swallowed the pang of disappointment and smiled. Let's go. The party was at a fancy restaurant downtown. One of those with low lighting, candles on tables, waiters in vests and ties, jazz music playing in the background, well-dressed people, lively conversations. When we arrived, he immediately started greeting everyone, pulling me by the hand, introducing me. This is Marcelo. We worked together a few years ago. This is Renata. She's in advertising. This is the birthday boy, Felipe, my friend since college. And then, as an afterthought, this is Clara, my girlfriend. I smiled, shook hands, tried to seem confident, interesting, worthy of that group, because that's what I felt, that I needed to be worthy. That I was being evaluated, judged, measured, and I wanted to pass the test. We sat at a large table with about 8 of his friends. I didn't really know anyone, but I was trying to fit in. I asked questions, laughed at the right moments, sipped slowly from the red wine they had served. The conversation flowed. They talked about work, about recent travels, about career plans. Renata had just returned from Barcelona. Marcelo was negotiating a promotion. Felipe was talking about a big project he had landed. I just listened, nodded, tried to keep up. I felt small in that group. Everyone seemed so successful, so confident, so accomplished. And me? I was just the girlfriend, the one who worked at a little agency, the one who was still trying. At some point, after the second course, the conversation took a more personal turn. Renata turned to me and asked with a kind smile, "And you, Clara, what do you do?" It was a simple question, normal, but my heart raced. I took a deep breath, straightened my posture, ready to answer with as much confidence as I could muster. "I work with," but before I could finish the sentence, he laughed. It wasn't a natural laugh. It was the kind of laugh that seems to carry something heavy underneath, something that hurts before it's even said. It was a laugh that said, "Oh, this question." And then he spoke, in that tone between playful and condescending. "Oh, Clara tries, you know. She works with social media, those internet things. But it hasn't really worked out yet, right, love? She's still finding her way, still hasn't taken off." The world stopped. It wasn't instantaneous. It was as if everything went into slow motion. I saw his mouth moving, forming the words. I saw his smile, light, casual, as if he hadn't said anything major. I saw the people around laughing, not out of malice, but because they thought it was a joke, that kind of inside joke between couples. I heard someone say, "Oh, everyone's finding their way. Relax, you'll find yours." I heard another raise their glass and make a toast. To Felipe, and to all of us still trying to take off. But I didn't hear anything after that. The sound became muffled, distant, as if I was underwater. My face burned. I felt the heat rise up my neck, my cheeks, my ears. My hands trembled under the table. I pressed my fingers against each other until it hurt, trying to anchor myself to something, trying not to fall apart there, in front of everyone. My heart beat so hard I felt it in my throat, in my ears, in my temples. I looked at him. I searched his eyes for some regret, some sign that he realized what he had done, that he saw the pain he had just caused me. But he just smiled, drank his wine, and went back to talking to Marcelo about something work-related, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just shattered me in front of strangers. In that moment, I realized something that broke me in half. He wasn't trying to motivate me. He never was. He was diminishing me, on purpose or not, consciously or not. He was making me feel small, inadequate, insufficient, and I had let him. For months, I had let him. I had swallowed every comment, every comparison, every "you could be better." I had molded my entire life trying to fit into his mold. And still, it wasn't enough. I was never going to be enough. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I smiled when I needed to smile, nodded when I needed to nod, laughed when everyone laughed. But inside, I was crumbling. Every brick of the person I had tried to build was falling, one by one, until there was nothing left but rubble. When we finally left the restaurant, it was past midnight. He was in a good mood, talking about how the night had been good, about how nice his friends were. He held my hand on the way to the car and said, "That was good, wasn't it? My friends liked you. I think you made a good impression." I just nodded. I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, if I let one word out, I would fall apart right there, in the middle of the sidewalk, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. So I bit my lip and held on until I got home. He dropped me off at the door, gave me a quick kiss on my cheek, not on my mouth, just on my cheek, and said we'd talk the next day. He got in the car and left. I stood there, in front of the building, watching the taillights of the car disappear around the corner, and only when he was completely gone could I move. I went up to the apartment, locked the door, let my purse fall to the floor in the entrance. I went straight to the bedroom, didn't even turn on the light. I lay on the bed still in my dress, still in my shoes, and that's when I fell apart. I cried so much the pillow became soaked. I cried until my throat hurt, until there were no more tears, until my whole body ached from sobbing so hard. It wasn't just about the humiliation, although that hurt like an open wound. It was about everything, about believing he loved me, about having changed so much, sacrificed so much, trying to be good enough, about having abandoned my dreams, my friends, my essence, about having become a shadow of who I was. I cried because I had lost myself, and the worst part, I hadn't even noticed when it happened. There was no specific day, no clear moment. It was gradual, silent, invisible, until one day I woke up and didn't recognize myself anymore. The following days were the darkest of my life. I woke up with no desire to get out of bed. I looked at the ceiling and thought, what for? Why get up? Why work? Why try? If in the end I wasn't enough anyway. I avoided the mirror because I didn't want to see who I had become. That woman in serious clothes, hair tied back, expressionless face, the one who had forgotten how to really laugh. He tried to act as if nothing had happened. He sent me messages during the day. Good morning. How's work? Want to have dinner tonight? He called me to go out as if that night had never existed. And me? I responded. Because deep down, I still thought that maybe, somehow, I could redeem myself, could prove I was worth something. But I couldn't pretend anymore. Every time he spoke, I heard those words again. She tries, but it didn't work out. Still hasn't taken off. As if I were a failed project. As if my life were a joke. As if 28 years of existence, of struggle, of work, of dreams, could be summed up as still trying. I started questioning everything. Was he right? Was I really a failure? I looked at my work projects, campaigns that had succeeded, satisfied clients, concrete results, and saw only failures. This isn't enough. This is too small. This doesn't matter. I looked in the mirror and saw someone without spark, without future, without value. I stopped responding to messages from my friends. I stopped creating content. I stopped dreaming. I had become a shadow of myself, a faded copy, a version that even I couldn't stand anymore. And the worst part is that I thought I deserved it. I thought the humiliation, the pain, the feeling of emptiness, all of it was a natural consequence of me not being good enough, of me having failed to become the person he wanted me to be. But on one of those gray nights, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, something happened. Something small, but powerful. I remembered who I was before him. I remembered the Clara who laughed loud and didn't apologize for it. The Clara who wore floral dresses and danced alone in her room. The Clara who made crazy plans. I'm going to open my own agency. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to live from art. The Clara who believed in her own dreams, even when everyone doubted. The Clara who had her own light. And for the first time in months, I felt anger. Not at him, not yet, but at myself. Anger for having let someone decide who I was. Anger for having silenced my own voice trying to hear his. Anger for having become invisible trying to be seen. Anger for having forgotten that I was already enough, long before he showed up and convinced me otherwise. And it was in that anger that I found strength. It was in that anger that I found the first spark of will to fight. The next day, I woke up different, not lighter. I was still broken, hurt, heavy with pain. But there was a spark, a decision, a small but firm voice saying, "No, enough. I'm not going to live like this anymore." I needed to get out of there. I needed to find myself again. I needed to remember who I was when no one was telling me who I should be. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my best friend, Luana. It was 10 a.m. She answered on the second ring with that cheerful voice of hers. "Clara, hi. What a surprise." And I fell apart. I couldn't even say hi. I just started crying, loudly, desperately, like a lost child. And she, on the other end of the line, didn't ask anything. She just said, "I'm coming. Don't go anywhere. 20 minutes. She arrived in 15. She rang the bell. I opened the door, and she hugged me. She didn't say anything, didn't ask questions. She just hugged me and let me cry on her shoulder until I had no more tears. When I finally calmed down, she took me to the couch, made tea, sat beside me and said, "Now tell me, everything." And I told her, everything. The comments about clothes, about work, about dreams, the constant comparisons, the feeling of never being enough, the humiliation at that dinner, the pain of having lost myself trying to please someone who would never be satisfied. I spoke nonstop for an hour, maybe 2. and she just listened, held my hand and listened. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she said, with that firmness that only a true friend has, "Clara, I was waiting for you to call. I watched you disappear. Month after month, I watched you vanish, and I didn't know how to bring you back, because you had closed all the doors, but now you called. And that's already a beginning. That's already courage. I'm not brave, Lou. I'm a coward. I let this happen. Stop." She cut me off firmly. "You're not a coward. You fell in love. And when we fall in love, we become vulnerable. We lower our guard. And sometimes the person we choose doesn't deserve that vulnerability. But that's not your fault. You're not weak for believing in him. You're human. And now you're being brave by recognizing you need to leave, that you need to choose yourself." That afternoon, sitting on my couch, Luana helped me put together a plan. Not a dramatic plan, not revenge, not a scene, just an exit plan, of liberation, of rescuing myself. That same week I broke up with him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't vengeful. It wasn't full of screaming or accusations. It was just necessary. He came to the apartment. I had asked us to talk. We sat on the couch, and I said, "I need to end this. I need space. I need to find myself." He frowned, confused. "What do you mean? We're fine. I don't understand." "We're not fine. I'm not fine. And I need to be alone now." He tried to argue. He said I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, that he only wanted to see me grow, become the best version of myself. "I love you, Clara. Everything I did was for you, to help you." I shook my head, slowly. "No, you don't love me. You love the idea of who you think I should be, but I'm not that person, and I don't want to be. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." He stood there for a minute, processing. Then he got up, grabbed the few things of his that were in the apartment, a toothbrush, a t-shirt, a book. He stopped at the door, turned to me and said, "You're going to regret this." I didn't respond. I just closed the door behind him. And when the lock clicked, when silence filled the apartment, I fell apart again. But this time, in the middle of the tears, there was something different. There was relief. The first few days alone were strange. The house seemed too empty, too big, too quiet. I woke up in the middle of the night with my chest tight, sweating cold, questioning whether I had made the right choice. I picked up my phone, saw his name in the contact list, and my finger hovered over the call button. Did I overreact? Should I have given it another chance? Is he right? And am I going to regret this? But every time I thought about going back, I remembered that night at the restaurant. I remembered his look when he said, "She tries," but it didn't work out. And I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to someone who made me feel small. I couldn't go back to someone who saw my dreams as a joke. I started therapy in the second week. Luana insisted, sent me the contact of a psychologist she knew. "Just go to one session. If you don't like it, you don't have to go back." I went because she insisted, not because I believed it would help, but I went. The therapist's name was Julia. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and a kind look. Her office was cozy, a comfortable armchair, a blanket, a window overlooking a tree. In the first session, she let me talk, without interrupting, without judging. I told everything again, the relationship, the changes, the humiliation, the breakup. And when I finished, she said something I'll never forget. "Clara, do you know what conditional self-esteem is?" I shook my head. "It's when we only feel valuable under certain conditions. If I'm pretty enough, if I'm successful enough, if I please the right people, then I'll be worthy of love." But the truth is that never works, because the conditions always change. You'll always find someone prettier, more successful, more impressive, and you'll spend your whole life chasing a goal that keeps moving. What you need to build now is unconditional self-esteem. You're valuable simply because you exist, not because you achieved something, not because someone validated you, but because you are you. I left that session with my head buzzing. Unconditional self-esteem, being valuable just for existing. It was such a foreign concept, so distant from everything I had believed my whole life. But for the first time, I wanted to believe it. The sessions continued, week after week. It was difficult at first, talking about everything, admitting I had lost myself, Recognizing I had let someone diminish me, there was shame, a lot of shame. Shame for being weak, for letting it happen. But Julia reminded me, you weren't weak, you were human, and now you're being brave. Gradually, session after session, I began to understand. Understanding that the problem was never that I wasn't enough. The problem was that I believed it. Understanding that true love doesn't diminish, doesn't compare, doesn't condition. Understanding that I had spent so much time trying to be seen by him that I had forgotten to see myself. And then I began the work of finding myself again. I went back to doing the things I loved. Small things at first. I started running in the morning. I woke up at 6, put on an upbeat song, and went out. At first I could barely make it around the block. My legs hurt. My lungs burned. I came back sweating and exhausted. But it didn't matter. I was doing it for myself. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, just because I wanted to. I resumed the graphic design course I had abandoned. I registered again, bought the materials, started studying, and for the first time in months, I felt that tingling of excitement, that desire to create, to learn, to grow, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to. I went back to posting on social media, at first, with fear, a lot of fear. Fear that someone would judge, that he would see it and laugh, that I would confirm I really wasn't good enough. But I posted anyway. A project I had done, a campaign I had created. And you know what happened? People liked it. They commented. They shared. And a potential client messaged me asking about pricing. Gradually, things started working out. Really working out. That client hired me for a big project, a complete campaign for an artisanal fashion brand. I worked on it with a dedication I hadn't felt in a long time, and the result was amazing. So amazing that the brand shared the work, and other people started reaching out to me. I won an award at a creativity competition. It wasn't a huge award, it wasn't international, but it was real. And when I went up on stage to receive it, when I held that small trophy in my hands, I cried. I cried because it was mine. It was the result of my work, my talent, my dedication. And no one could take that away from me. I reconnected with friends I had pushed away. Luana, of course, never left, but there were others. Bianca, João, Fernanda, people I had left behind trying to fit into his life. I sent messages apologizing, explaining that I had lost myself, that I was sorry. And you know what they said? We're here. We always were. We started seeing each other again. Dinners, movies, conversations until late, and I laughed. I really laughed. Loudly, without apologizing, without holding back. I had forgotten how good it felt to laugh like that. I bought floral dresses again. I threw away, literally threw away, that blue blazer he liked so much. I let my hair down. I wore red lipstick. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I liked what I saw. Not because I was perfect, not because I had achieved all my goals, but because I was coming back. Clara was coming back. I was rebuilding myself, but not to be who I was before, to be an even better version, a version that knew her own worth, a version that didn't need anyone's approval. But the story doesn't end there, because life has a curious way of closing circles. 6 months after the breakup, on a random Saturday, I was at a cafe working on my laptop. It was a new cafe that had opened near my house, with little tables on the sidewalk, the smell of fresh bread, soft music. I was working on a project, drinking a cappuccino, the sun warm on my face, and then someone called me. Clara? I looked up. It was him. My heart raced, not from love, not from longing, but from alert. That kind of automatic body response when something that has already hurt you appears again. I took a deep breath, closed my laptop, and said, "Hi." He had that same confident smile, that same way of speaking. "Wow. What a surprise to find you here. You look different. You look beautiful. Thank you." He pulled up a chair, without asking permission, and sat down. "You know, I think about you a lot, about how good we were together. I think I made a mistake, you know. I should have valued you more, should have been more present." I looked at him, and for the first time I saw clearly. There was no real regret there. There was no acknowledgement of what he had done. There was nostalgia. Nostalgia for having someone he could mold, someone who tried to prove their worth to him all the time. someone who was easy to control. "I don't think we were good," I said calmly. "I think I was lost, and you took advantage of that. Consciously or not, you made me doubt myself. You made me feel small, and I let you. But today I know who I am, and I don't need your approval." He tried to laugh, say I was overreacting again, that I was always too sensitive, but I had already stood up, had already closed my laptop, put it in my backpack, grabbed my empty cup. I looked at him one last time and said, "I wish you the best, really. I hope you learn to see value in people without having to diminish them first. But I won't be around for that. I've already wasted too much time." And I left. I walked down the sidewalk, the warm sun on my back, my heart beating hard, but not from fear, from freedom. I had defended myself. I had spoken the truth. I hadn't gone back, hadn't doubted myself, hadn't let him make me feel small again. When I turned the corner, I stopped for a second, leaned against the wall, and smiled. A genuine smile, wide, full of pride. Pride in myself, in how much I had grown, how much I had fought, how much I had learned to love myself. Today, 2 years later, I look back and see that Clara, the one who cried on her pillow, who believed she wasn't enough, who lost herself trying to be loved, and I feel enormous tenderness. I wish I could go back in time and hug her, tell her, "You are enough, you always were, and you're going to discover that. It will hurt, but you're going to discover it." Today I know that losing someone can be the first step to finding yourself. I don't hold a grudge against him. I don't wish for him to suffer or regret, because the truth is, he taught me, without knowing it, how strong I can be. He showed me how capable I was of losing myself, and how capable I was of finding myself again. I learned that true love doesn't weigh you down, doesn't diminish, doesn't compare, doesn't condition. True love celebrates who you are, not who you should be. True love makes you feel safe to be exactly who you are, with your small dreams, your childish clothes, your loud laughter. And you know where I found that love? Inside myself. When I look in the mirror today, I see someone whole, someone who wears floral dresses and blazers depending on the day, someone who laughs loud and doesn't apologize, someone who dreams big and isn't ashamed of it, someone who knows that working with small local brands isn't less than, it's purpose, someone who chooses herself every day, someone who doesn't ask for permission to exist. My agency is growing, still small, but growing. I have a team of 3 people now, and we work with clients we love, on projects that make sense. It's not a multinational. I don't earn millions, but I wake up every day excited, and that, for me, is worth more than any impressive title. I traveled alone for the first time. I went to that mountain town I always wanted to visit. I spent a week there, walking through cobblestone streets, having coffee at local cafes, writing in a journal about everything I'd lived through. And it was one of the happiest weeks of my life. I made new friends. I met incredible people, people who truly see me, who celebrate my victories, who embrace me on difficult days. And I do the same for them, because I learned that true friendship is reciprocal. It's generous. It's safe. And love? Well, I'm not looking. But if it appears, I know exactly what I deserve. Someone who sees me, truly sees me, who celebrates my dreams, who finds my jokes funny, who looks at me in a floral dress and says, "You look beautiful." Not, "You should wear something else." Someone who makes me feel bigger, not smaller. But until then, I'm fine. More than fine. I'm whole. If you're hearing this now and feel like you've lost your footing, breathe. Breathe deeply. I know it hurts. I know it seems impossible. I know you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, that you woke up one day and realized you lost yourself trying to be loved. But I promise, you can find yourself again. It will hurt. It will be difficult. There will be days when you'll want to give up, but you're stronger than you imagine. Sometimes, what seems like the end is just the beginning of truly finding yourself. Sometimes, losing someone is gaining yourself back, and there's no greater prize than that. You don't need anyone's approval to be enough. You don't need to change, mold yourself, diminish yourself to fit into someone's love, because true love, the kind that really matters, already exists, inside you, And when you learn to love yourself, when you learn to choose yourself, everything changes. You are enough. You always have been, exactly as you are. If this story touched you, leave a heart in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. It could be a friend who's losing herself, a cousin who's doubting himself, a colleague who's trapped in a relationship that isn't good for her. Share it. Because the more we talk about this, the more people feel less alone. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories of overcoming, rebuilding, and self-love. Turn on notifications. And always remember, you are enough, you are valuable, you are worthy of a love that makes you feel free. And if you made it this far, to the end of this story, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being here. You're not alone. None of us are. Until the next story, take care of yourself. You deserve it.